Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a major cool down over portions of the central and eastern United States. We're going to be going over how much cold air you could be seeing and how cold that cold air will be, as well as how much snowfall could be present within parts of the Rockies, Midwest, Great Lakes, and even parts of the upper Northeast. We're also going to be going over a couple of potential snow events, and that'll probably be actually the topic of tomorrow's video, where I plan on talking about a snow event for parts of Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and again through parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So we're going to be talking about that in tomorrow's video. So make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss when I upload that. So here is the current National Weather Service page. Wind advisories for parts of central Florida. We have some red flag warnings in effect for parts of central Colorado. Central California has some air quality alerts, as well as northern Colorado. High wind warnings in effect for parts of southeastern Wyoming. Southeastern Idaho has some wind advisories, as well as parts of south central Washington state. And then we have some winter weather advisories for parts of northern Wyoming and much of the central part of Montana. Other than that, there's not a lot going on in terms of watches and warnings. And don't be surprised if you see a whole swath of winter weather advisories be expanded probably into tonight, and probably by tomorrow morning you'll see quite a bit of these winter weather advisories. And every night at around 8 p.m. Eastern time, that would be around 5 p.m. Pacific time, I update you guys on the winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, winter storm watches, and all the frost and freeze warnings and advisories that are up for that day. So make sure you are checking out my community tab right around 8 o'clock Eastern time, and that's usually when I post on that, so you guys are always updated. So here is the European Ensemble model, and this is showing you how cold or warm the temperatures are compared to your normal for that day. So in the oranges, the yellows, the reds, and also in the browns and the whites, that's where you're looking at above average temperatures. So here's an example of above average temperatures. And then in the blues, the greens, the purples, and even some of those magentas that you'll start to see later on in this model run, that's where you're looking at colder than normal temperatures. And as you get into the purples and the pinks and the magentas, that's where you're getting really below normal. Also, something I have to mention, this is in Celsius, so nothing I can do about that. And of course, if I could put it in Fahrenheit, I would, but I can't. I have no control over that. So a good rule of thumb when you're talking about temperature anomalies, multiply whatever the temperature anomaly is by 2. So let's say your temperature anomaly is -7 or 7 degrees below normal. Multiply that by 2, you get 14 degrees below normal, and that's generally a good easy way to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit just very quickly, and that works the opposite way. So when you're talking about a warmer than normal temperatures. So let's start off here. This is the European Ensemble model, a collection of 51 model members, and then we'll look at the GFS Ensemble model and what it's showing. Now we see, but this would be by Wednesday morning, so this would be this week, October 21st, and we're looking at some of that cold air moving through parts of the northern plains, parts of the western Great Lakes, and even parts of the northern Rockies. And that's really going to start to intensify, especially over this region of Montana, Wyoming, even parts of Idaho, and then down through parts of the Dakotas, where you're really going to be looking at quite a bit in the way of very cold temperatures and even some snowfall. Now here would be by Thursday morning, October 22nd, and then look at Friday morning, October 23rd. You could see some negative temperatures, maybe even double-digit negative numbers right in southern Montana, northern Wyoming. I was looking at some of the actual low temperatures, and some of them were double-digit below zero. Of course, those were in mainly the elevated areas, but still very, very cold for this time of year to be seeing those that cold of temperatures. And then we're seeing that that kind of line of cold temperatures and warm temperatures pushing a little bit further to the east. Much of the eastern United States will still be warm by this point, but give it maybe another week or two, and you'll start to get into the cold air. And I'll show you that when the model, as we progress this model forward. Now here would be by October 24th, Saturday, and we're looking at that very cold air mass moving through parts of the northern plains, and then down through parts of the central plains, and even down through parts of the Mississippi River Valley. Here would be by October 25th, Sunday, and that cold air retreats back to the west. We are going to see some preliminary cold air for the interior Northeast, the Ohio Valley, parts of the Great Lakes, but that'll quickly go away, and you're really going to be driven by this pattern of very cold temperatures through the northern Rockies, even parts of the Northwest, and parts of the northern plains, where in Celsius this is near 15 degrees below zero, below average, but in Fahrenheit, if you multiply that by 2, that would be closer to 30, 31, 32 degrees below normal. So that's very, very cold for this time of year. Now, here to be by October 26th, and this is when you start to get your real push. Somewhere between the 26th and the 28th is when you're really going to start to see that colder set in for the eastern United States. It's a matter of breaking down this ridge over to the southeast and building a ridge over parts of the western United States in order to flip your pattern from cold in the west and warm in the east to cold in the east and warm in the west. Now, here would be by October 27th. Here's by the 28th. And we're looking at that cold air mass moving all the way down through parts of the Rockies and then back up through parts, basically from the Rockies eastward until you hit the Appalachian Mountains, and then that's where the cold air kind of stops. This would be by October 28th, but then look what happens on the 29th. Much of the eastern United States is now under that cold air mass. Now we're looking at very cold temperatures spanning from parts of the Rockies and eastward all the way through parts of the East Coast. So it's going to be a very cold driven pattern with the most below normal temperatures up in parts of the northern plains and parts of the upper Great Lakes. Now, here would be by Friday, October 30th, and here would be by the 31st, and that cold air only intensifies over the eastern United States. And look what ends up happening. We end up getting some of that cold air, or some of those warmer temperatures up in the western United States, and that would indicate a ridge, and what a ridge does is drive the pattern by making a ridge all the way from British Columbia southward, and then your jet stream will dip down, usually in the wintertime, fairly far to the south, and with that jet stream dip, that gives you some of those colder temperatures. We have a very cold air mass that's sitting over the eastern United States. It's a broad area of low pressure that would be dominating the pattern, and that's what's really driving this pattern: a ridge in the west, a trough in the east, and that's what you really look for in the winter to get very cold and snowy conditions. Of course, it's only October, and we still have to see what will happen in the winter. Now, here would be by November 1st, and here's by the 2nd of November, and we're starting to see some of this cold air leave, and I'll do that actually in a bigger font. We're starting to see some of this cold air leave in the eastern United States, but it's only refueling in the Midwest, and that'll kind of move back down to the south and to the east. Now, here would be by the GFS, what the GFS ensemble model is showing. We're using the same colors and temperature profiles for this, so nothing has really changed. The only thing that's changed is the model. The GFS ensemble model is a collection of about 31 model members, and let's see what this one shows. So we see this one is a little bit further east oriented, which means that we have the colder temperatures centered a little bit further to the east than what we saw in the European model, and that'll have a driving force down later on in the road in this model run. Now, what you notice is that just preliminarily we see a warm ridge over parts of the eastern United States, and your ridge is really off the Atlantic, so right around here is where your ridge is, but you're really seeing those effects in the temperature anomalies all along the eastern seaboard. And then we see another ridge back through parts of the southwest. That one will break as you get that very cold air from Canada to come in, but then as it moves further to the east, as that cold air moves further to the east, you'll actually see another ridge that builds into parts of the western United States. So let's play this through and see what the GFS ensemble model wants to do. Here to be by the 21st, we're looking at some cold air in the northern plains. It then shifts westward, and we see pretty much exactly what the European ensemble model showed. So it's pretty much a replica of what the European model showed, and we are seeing some colder temperatures through parts of Alberta, Canada, British Columbia, Canada, and then down through parts of Montana and the Dakotas is where you're really seeing the heart of that cold air. And then it gets very cold for Friday, October 23rd throughout those regions. Here's by the 24th, and you see that magenta coloring that indicates near 30 degrees below normal, and that's striping through parts of Minnesota, back through Montana, and then back into parts of Alberta and British Columbia, Canada. Now let's play this through even more. Here would be by the 25th, the 26th, and here's by the 27th. And notice what we saw. I'll go back a little bit more. We saw a temporary ridge in the southeastern United States, and I'll leave this up on the map here. We saw a ridge here, and we are starting to see preliminary ridging through parts of the Four Corners, and we see a big upper trough that's moving through parts of the northern plains. Now, this is going to be by October 25th, and of course, this is just a model, and I'll leave this up. Look what happens. Here's the 26th, here's the 27th, and look what happens. We end up seeing that warm air, and I'll actually move this forward even more. We're starting to see, instead of seeing a low pressure up in the northern plains and pretty much just for this region, we're now starting to see a ridge move out of the eastern United States. You're still seeing some minor effects from that, but we're really seeing that big trough kind of barrel through parts of the eastern United States, and pretty much the entire country, except for the East Coast, is under that cold air. And then look what happens. Here's the 29th, here's the 30th, and by the 30th, probably by Halloween, we're looking at some of that very warm air mass moving through parts of the western United States, and you would probably be seeing a ridge build in here by that point, and you're starting to see that cold air mass move throughout parts of the eastern United States, indicating those cooler than normal temperatures. Here would be by the 31st, and here would be by November 1st, and we're looking at that very warm air moving through the western United States, basically from the Rockies and just eastward and further to the west. That's where you see your warmer than normal temperatures from the Rockies, and I would say basically the plains eastward. You see those cooler than normal temperatures, basically splitting the country in half from cold and warm. Here would be by November 2nd, and we're looking at those cold temperatures through parts of the eastern United States, and I would say probably the eastern half of the United States. And then by November 3rd, we're looking at those warmer than normal temperatures starting to move a little bit further to the east, but you're still going to probably stay in this cold pattern for another week or two over parts of the eastern United States, and that probably won't go away for quite a while. Let's quickly look at some other data. Here would be the snowfall totals from the GFS Ensemble model, again collecting 31 different models, averaging them out, and this is what ends up being shown. We see a lot of clipper systems, and this is going to be something I talk about in tomorrow's video with that snowstorm in Montana, the Dakotas, and Minnesota. You usually see a lot of clipper systems in this type of pattern that originate over parts of Alberta, Canada, and then dip down into parts of the northern Rockies before turning eastward, and you really get that represented within here, where you see a broad area of 6 to 10, maybe even a couple areas seeing near a foot of snowfall only going through early in the morning on November 4th. Here would be by Sunday, November 29th. Here's the snowfall from today all the way until Sunday, November 29th on the European Ensemble model and what it's showing. And we see pretty much that same pattern. Of course, the further north you go and the higher elevated you are, the more snowfall you're going to see. And you really see that represented within the northern Rockies. You see quite a bit of snowfall for parts of the northern plains and parts of the interior northeast. A good rule of thumb with this type of map is that once you get into the dark grays or maybe even that first shade of blue, that's where you have a decent chance. I would say maybe closer to 70 or 80% chance of seeing snowfall within that period. If you're just in the I would say the second or third or maybe even the first shade of gray, I would give it closer to a 30 or 40% chance that by that point you would see some snowfall. Of course, this is an average of a bunch of models, and we have to take this with a grain of salt. Here would be the 6 to 10 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center going from the 24th to the 28th. We're looking at that broad area of very cold temperatures through the northern plains and northern Rockies, and you see that southeast ridge that builds over parts of the southeast and mainly the coastal southeast. Here would be by the 26th to November 1st, and we're looking at that cold air trying to progress eastward. And again, notice that these are just percent chances of seeing seeing colder warm temperatures. So even though you see those oranges and those yellows over the east coast, I still think that to the latter part of that period from the 26th to November 1st, probably by the 30th, 31st, and maybe November 1st, we start to get into that cold air, especially over this part of the United States. And that's where I think the big shift is going to happen between the 27th and the 30th or so, and that's when your really big shift is going to occur. And then the pattern kind of stabilizes, I would say, by the 1st of November, maybe the 2nd of November. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.